Welcome to Matrimonial Merger, the podcast where Ambry and Jesse, a husband and wife couple, share their insights and experiences on relationships, health, and wealth. With their expertise in business and as neuro-linguistic master practitioners, they provide valuable advice on overcoming challenges and achieving success. Join us for practical tips on navigating the intersection of personal and professional life.
Welcome to the Matrimonial Merger podcast. Ambry and Jesse here. What a week. Like, for us, we've been gone for the last week, 10 days, really.
Yeah, like a week and a half.
On a cruise. And it was a ton of fun. And we learned a lot. Like, one thing about Ambry and
it was a wild time.
Every time we go and do these things, we always take back more data and what should we do next? How do we improve? So that we can honestly just be really good vacation people and, you know, just improve our life.
Like take stress out of it, right? Because
yes.
No one wants stress when they're on vacation. It's our time to unplug, to reset, to make memories, to have fun. And so, I mean, while we believe truly everything happens for a reason and there's a reason for everything and all the feedback we receive, we also take that feedback and try and, you know, learn from it and and make the next one even better. So
I'll tell you what, the theme for the cruise was plan. That's all that went through my mind. Like, everything was just plan ahead down to every single moment that you want to experience.
Another thing that crossed my mind was just like trying new things and, you know, exploring different options of things so that you actually know like what it is that you want, what it is that you desire in a vacation, right?
For sure.
Like, anyways.
For sure. And then, you know, there's always, the reason why we love going on vacation is because there's always new openings to thoughts and things that we want to take back and learn.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I was listening to a book. The book is called Living Forward. And let me give you an idea. It's by Michael Hyatt and Daniel Harkavy. It's a great, quick, I think it's like a 2.5 hour read or 3 hour read on Audible. I guess it'd be a listen then, not a read. But but the idea of this book is really designing your life and living forward, setting your plans, setting your ideas. And so I took that information and I sat down and started really mapping out things in my life. Like, we've talked about this on the show, and like our coaching that we've done, we've helped people to design a life. And I'm going back and looking at some of the past things that I've designed and start to notice like I was not as detailed as I should be. Like, really, really investing the time to get to know it. It's so interesting because I put for 2023, 7-day cruise. And we went on a 7-day cruise in 2023. But I didn't design that cruise. Like, really, what was it that I wanted to do? What was it that I wanted to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I put it there, and the unconscious executed, but it wasn't in great detail. So the unconscious executed and gave me the results that I wanted, but it wasn't the full experience. Like, I didn't specify, you know, a suite versus the dark, you know, 600 square foot or less room. Like, we didn't specify what type of excursions, what ship. We just did it, right? And so there's a little bit of learning there. But in this book, there's some exercises, and I'm happy to pass those along if you're ever interested. But I started writing down everything today, and I came up with this little nugget of wisdom that I want to share with you. Today, I finally accepted 100% that I am selfish. And I know we've said that before, but like, I've accepted that I myself am my highest priority. What are your thoughts on that?
It's so interesting because like at first, first thoughts on that is like, wait, what? Right? Okay, so explain, right? Because, you know, my whole life, and I think a lot of people maybe listening can agree that, you know, we're taught to be selfless and to to, really just be selfless, right? And this idea or this thought that you shared kind of shed some new light on that for me, of like the difference between being selfless or, like being able to serve and, sometimes put others' needs before your own, because we do that sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But being able to kind of give clarity and purpose to what that means, and the difference between that and like between selfishness and like honoring oneself in a sense is kind of how I would differentiate like the two concepts and like what you're about to share, because I think that sometimes we, confuse that, or we think because we are honoring ourselves, or because we are taking care of ourselves, or, putting our needs sometimes first, that we're being selfish. Honestly, I think we touched on this a little bit in one of our very first episodes. It's all about you. But just like how important it is to actually prioritize you and your needs and the things that make you you, and to know you, to understand yourself, because how can you truly give your best self to the other people in your life that are a priority to you without first being your best self and understanding who and what that is? So that's my thoughts in a large nutshell. But initially it's like, when you hear someone say like, oh, I'm my highest priority, it's like I kind of raise an eyebrow, like, wait, like at first to me that sounds very selfish and egotistical, or, but it's interesting to actually consider what that can mean and how that can be a very incredible, wonderful, beautiful thing.
And so I love that you led into like serving other people, but I want you to consider like if you're a religious person, maybe you've made promises and covenants to God, or a higher being. Maybe it's, not even God, but another,
or simply just spirituality in general, like having a purpose spiritually where, either it's a way you live. It could be promises you made. It could be just a way you live.
Yeah.
Values and standards that you hold close, right?
But let's say, like, for those that are really spiritual, and this kind of resonates with them, like a higher being or intelligence, higher intelligence, you've made a promise, right? But I want you to think about like the promise that you're making, and what are you leveraging? And as I started to really consider this, I noticed that I leverage my highest priority. I leverage myself in exchange for trust and other blessings, right? Like in the concept that if I make a covenant with God, I follow those covenants, I'll be blessed and prosper in the land. But I am leveraging as collateral, I am making a promise of myself. And there are literally three people, or three groups rather, and if we continue to add children into our life, right, it continues to expand. But there are three people that I've made a promise to of my highest priority. A promise of my highest priority. In essence, I'm leveraging trust. I'm asking for trust in exchange for the collateral of my greatest priority in my life, which is myself. And that trust is with God. I've made a promise with you, and then our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I leverage
for each of us individually, we are the common denominator in that equation, right? Where
exactly.
Like you are the thing or the person leveraged in those commitments.
Yes.
In that exchange of action versus trust, or action for trust, or whatever, right? Like whatever it is in that relationship, like what you're offering in exchange for the trust, or the relationship, the blessings, the whatever you're getting in return, like you're the common denominator.
Yeah. I'm leveraging me, my talents, my gifts, my ideas, my focus, anything and everything. I leverage that and I say, Ambry, when you and I got married 12 years ago, I promised to give you all of these things. My highest and best self, I promise you these things in exchange for your trust, that I will make sure those things happen. So then what happens in life? I mean, I'm not afraid to admit that 2 years ago, that trust was on the fringe. Like, there wasn't a lot of trust. There wasn't a lot of, I would say, progression. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm overweight. I'm not focusing on anything. I'm just working because in my mind, I had misconstrued the idea that what I wanted to provide you was kids, was vacation, jewelry, cars, house, a bunch of material things. If I could provide you those things, you would be happy. But I noticed that that wasn't the case. And what really makes you excited is when you have the security and confidence knowing that the collateral that was leveraged in exchange for your trust is having a progression upwards, like a stock.
Yeah.
Like it makes us all happy seeing our stock go up.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, like, honestly hit me most about what you shared today in your Emerge coaching group, which was just that, like, I'll just read part of what you shared because it hit me hard. But you said, it becomes even more crucial for me to find out what I need to give my highest priority or self, so that I can continue to maintain the value of the collateral I've leveraged. Essentially, the value that you have to offer, the value that you provide, the value that you are. And to me, that was like powerful, because I'm like, wow, okay, so if we are considering like giving our best self, giving our all, what is that, right?
Yeah. What does that even mean?
It's going to look different for every person, right? But let's just say, like, you know, you could be a 1 or a 10. Like, would you want to be giving all of 1 or all of 10? That's up to you, right? And from a like spiritual standpoint, I mean, I believe in God, and you know, I do believe that whether our all is a 1 or a 10, that God receives and honors that. I do believe that. However, how powerful and impactful for us to consider, what if my 1 could be a 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much more value do I have to offer? And you know, like, that can become a very powerful thing in relationships. I mean, we're talking about marriage or being a parent, you know, like, what can you do to turn that 1 into a 10? And the value that you have to offer in the collateral of yourself. That's cool. That's powerful.
It's so cool. It's the truth is this, right? We all want the security and confidence knowing that the collateral that was leveraged has some sort of value, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be married to someone that has made you these promises, but you're not receiving what you perceive as value from these promises. If you're not receiving those, you're not happy. You're not satisfied, right? But the truth is this, is like, when you have that confidence, then all the memories, the experiences, the vacations, the clothing, the jewelry, the cars, the house, all that stuff is dividends that you rightfully receive because of the investment in the promises that you allowed. You allowed trust with those promises, and therefore you're trusting that person, and the dividends are being paid, and you get to enjoy those dividends. You get to enjoy all the extra perks. And then also having the confidence, knowing that your trust, which is important to you, has value. And that the person that is promised you, there's value in those promises, that they're actually going to do what they do or say they're going to do. And it just, from like a spiritual standpoint, it hit me today. All of us, Judgment Day, there's God, you're kneeling down. And the real question I had is, am I looking him in the eyes with gratitude, with excitement, telling him I did the things that I knew I was meant to do? Or am I looking down, avoiding eye contact, ashamed because I'm not 100% confident in myself?
Yeah.
And I think that really, when I wrote that down today, like I wrote my mission statement, my highest priorities, and like what I truly, truly want. And when I wrote that down, is like, I want to be looking God in the eyes, full confidence, knowing that there was nothing left behind, as opposed to looking down and feeling ashamed. Sure, there may be things that I'm not quite aware of at whatever time that happens that I could have learned. And I would have been like, okay, yeah, I could see that, but I want it more like a coaching, like you could have done this and this and this. And I could have been like, oh my gosh, yes, I could have. I wish I'd.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
things to expand, but not like,
I'm not dropping my head. I'm not looking down. I'm not avoiding the reality, because the reality is, at the end of it, I lived it. Like, the reality that was my highest life was me looking forward and doing the things that I wanted to do, giving my highest and best self, and allowing the energy just to continue to flow. And it was such an impactful thought that happened today. And, you know, obviously we kind of twist it and make it sound like business, but like for me, thinking of collateral, the words collateral and leveraged and returns and dividends, that speaks to me at such a deep level.
right.
Because that's what I'm in all day long. But I just want you to think about that for a moment. Like, the promises you've made, it's okay to, number one, acknowledge and admit that you are your highest priority. We are all selfish, and that's fine. However, you have leveraged your highest priority, yourself, to other people that you care about. You've promised.
And I think that's the kind of point where it turns into, like, rather than being selfish, it turns into like a sense of honor and a sense of, you know, like just respecting yourself.
You love yourself so much that you promise to give yourself to others. That's
and I mean, I think there's so much power behind like the purpose in you wanting to be your highest and best self is because of those people, the relationships, the, you know,
right,
those who have given their trust to you. I think that there's absolutely nothing selfish about that.
No.
Right? I mean, it's just like that purpose is so powerful. And if that's the purpose behind you desiring to be your best self and create your best self, I mean, I truly believe that the actions and the things you're doing to create that person are going to be aligned, obviously. And it's not like you're just going to be, I'm going to do everything for myself. And it's not going to look like that. It's going to be a lot different and more impactful, obviously. But yeah, I just think that the word selfish doesn't even like fit in that picture at all.
No, and it's interesting because like right now, I showed you this before the show. I have my day, Monday through Sunday, from 6 o'clock in the morning, generally 6 o'clock to 9:30 in 30-minute increments. And a lot of these things are my understanding of what I believe right now in my life I need in order to give my highest and best self. You know, I need time to sit down and to calm the nervous system and get my meditation in. I need my steps. I need my workout. I need dinner, like structure with our kids, dinner time, and getting to invest in our children. And as I'm looking to this schedule, like I told you, I'm like, looking at this gets me exhausted, like makes me feel tired because it is literally every waking minute. And there's not like I'm going, okay, there's time blocks here, but those time blocks are going to be for work or for, creating a massive memory for our kids with our family vlog. And I'm starting to look at it and say, there's no time for movies. There's no time for social media. There's no time to be sitting here. Like, I don't even have time to use the restroom for very long, right? Like, it is that detailed because these are all the things I want, which is awesome. But ultimately, understanding that and having a purpose, imagine living your life 100% conscientious of every decision you make. Every decision you make is for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Man, doesn't that get you excited? Like, down to the color of shoes you buy, there's a purpose, there's a meaning behind it. That is so much more powerful than just going, I don't know, I just felt like I needed shoes today, so I'm going to go spend, $300 on shoes. Well, cool, but you don't even have it in your budget because it's not planned for that moment.
Right.
And everything is like beautifully tied together. And so that's a message I wanted to kind of hit home. And as I'm continuing, like, I've spent all day long doing this. I turned off my phone, haven't done any work, and I feel like I'm getting there, but I also feel like there's more to be had.
Yeah.
And there's more details. And,
that in and of itself too is another like interesting thing, right? Because when was the last time any of us took, a few hours just to reflect and to ponder and to become curious and, like to design and to create.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I did that.
But we're going to do that. Like, you and I've talked about it and said we're going to dedicate a weekend where we just turn off the phones. Obviously, in case there's an emergency with our kids, but someone watches our kids, we turn off our phones. We go somewhere that is very inviting to the designing, and we sit down and design and lock in together.
Yeah.
Get excited for what we're going to work on together so that we have a purpose, so that we have a goal of where we want to take ourselves in the next year and breaking it down. I think, like, once again, the cruise that we went on was so good for me to like recognize that we get off the boat and we're in Honduras and we're like, oh, what do we do? And as we're walking, we are listening to all the noise around us. Taxi here, taxi there. There's literally, you guys, a strip that when you have to walk through, and there were 10 people on each side of you. All of them were vacation planners screaming and yelling at you, like, to come over and to book your plan, your vacation. And my thought as we were walking through that tunnel was, holy crap, there is so much noise around us that is life. And in order to get through that tunnel without getting distracted, without getting frustrated or overwhelmed, you need to have your plan, and you need to know in advance what you're doing so that you don't get drifting into or sucked into one of those and letting someone make your life plan for you.
Right. The options are endless, but you gotta know what it is you want.
Planning
is
the P word. The Achilles heel of Jesse and Ambry Fisco, but we're learning how to strengthen our Achilles.
I love spontaneity so much, and I'm learning that there is a time and a place for it, and we get to decide what that is and what that looks like for us. But yeah, planning definitely has been something that we have to continue to sharpen and to create for ourselves.
It's awesome.
Gotta love it.
I, once again, like, my biggest takeaway from the cruise and from this day of just sitting down and planning is, my goodness, why haven't I done this earlier? And like I said, if you don't have a plan, someone else will have a plan for you.
Absolutely.
And you will drift. You will drift. You cannot coast in life. If you don't know what you're doing in the next month, if you're waiting 2 or 3 days before the holidays to get your Christmas shopping done, and you're out there stressing and trying to buy, it's not going to be memorable. You're going to avoid the holidays. It's not going to be a good experience for you. You have to create the experience that you want and the outcome you want of that experience.
Planning.
This episode is brought to you by planning.
By lack of planning and the learning
therein. I just want to say thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we hope that it helps you. And if you have questions on planning or would like to gather more information, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. But we just want to say thank you so much for listening to the show. Ambry, it is always a pleasure to sit down and date night with you on our Monday nights.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you
for sharing your highest priority with me.
Myself. Thanks again for listening. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Matrimonial Merger podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode and found it informative and entertaining. If you did, we would love it if you could share this podcast with your friends and family who might also be interested in topics related to marriage and relationships. And if you have a few minutes, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us improve the show and reach more listeners like you. Thanks again for listening to the Matrimonial Merger. We'll be back soon with another episode.